There's a dangerous lie being whispered through the noise of our modern world. A lie disguised as inspiration. A lie wrapped in the sweet language of dreams. They tell you to follow your passion. To do what feels good. To trust your gut and the rest will fall into place. But look around. How many people do you know who followed their passion straight into frustration? Into financial struggle, into unfinished projects, into abandoned goals buried under the weight of inconsistency? Because here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. It's not passion. It's mastery. And mastery is born not in inspiration, but in repetition. The world doesn't reward what you start. It rewards what you finish. And you don't finish things because you're excited. You finish them because you're disciplined. Because you understand that greatness isn't a feeling, it's a philosophy. The farmer doesn't plant in spring because he's passionate about seeds. He plants because he understands the seasons. Because he respects the law of the harvest. The unbreakable truth that you will reap what you sow. But only if you show up. Daily. Repetitively. Faithfully. Consistency beats intensity. Every time. You want a life that matters? Then stop chasing the dopamine of new beginnings. And fall in love with the process of becoming. The world is filled with people who start. Starters don't build legacies. Finishers do. And finishers don't rely on emotion. They rely on structure. They build a life on principles that hold even when motivation doesn't. Because here's another truth they won't tell you. Motivation is seasonal. But discipline is eternal. And discipline. That's not some punishment you endure. It's the bridge. The sacred bridge between who you are and who you could be. If passion gets you in the game, discipline keeps you there when the crowd goes quiet. When the lights dim. When no one's watching and nothing feels exciting. That's when mastery is made. Think of the sculptor. He doesn't wake up every day inspired. He wakes up every day committed to showing up in front of that block of stone. Chipping away. One strike. Then another. 1,000 repetitions before the form reveals itself. That's mastery. A quiet, relentless rhythm. It's the writer who writes even when the words come slow. It's the athlete who trains when the cameras are off. It's the entrepreneur who keeps refining, improving, showing up. Even when no one's buying yet. They don't do it for applause. They do it because they've seen the other side. They've seen what happens when you compound small efforts over time. Not for days. Not for weeks. But for years. You see, repetition isn't boring. Repetition is the sharpening stone of greatness. Every rep is a declaration. I am not here to dabble. I am here to master. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most people don't want mastery. They want entertainment. They want comfort. They want ease. But life, real, meaningful life, isn't built on comfort. It's built on uncomfortable truths. Like this one. You are not entitled to the results you didn't earn through repetition. You can't meditate your way to success. You can't manifest your way out of mediocrity. You must work. Deliberately. Repeatedly. Intentionally. And yes, you must endure boredom. Because boredom is where most dreams go to die. Not in failure. Not in crisis. But in the slow drift of distraction, of not feeling it today. Of letting your emotions vote on your actions. But listen closely. Your emotions are not qualified to decide your future. Your philosophy is. Your system is. Your standard is. Raise your standard. Your life will rise to meet it. We've built a culture that worships spontaneity and despises structure. But structure is freedom. When you build rituals, when you choose consistency, you are reclaiming control over your time. Over your energy. Over your life. You don't rise to the level of your intentions. You fall to the level of your systems. So if your life feels stuck, it's not because you lack passion. It's because you've been skipping the reps. You've been mistaking the feeling of wanting something for the reality of working for it. But here's the good news. You can begin again. Not with fireworks, but with small, repeated, deliberate action. They won't tell you this because it doesn't sell courses. It doesn't get likes. It doesn't go viral. But the truth has never needed approval. It just needs to be lived. So forget the noise. Forget the trend chasing and quick fixes. And ask yourself the real questions. What am I repeating every day? What rituals are shaping me when no one's looking? What disciplines am I building or ignoring that are determining the trajectory of my life? Because you don't rise to your goals. You fall to your habits. And the person you're becoming? That's just the compound interest of your repeated choices. Every single day. You see, repetition doesn't just build skills. It builds identity. Every time you show up, every time you keep a promise to yourself, you're not just moving closer to a result. You're voting for the kind of person you are becoming. It's not about the task. It's about the declaration. This is who I am now. When you hit the gym at 6 a.m., it's not just fitness. It's self-respect. It's integrity. It's a lifestyle where your word matters more than your mood. When you sit down and write 500 words even though you're exhausted, that's not productivity. That's character being sculpted in silence. You don't get confidence by hyping yourself up in the mirror. You get confidence by keeping your word to yourself. By stacking wins, tiny, invisible wins, that compound quietly over time. And that's where most people lose the game. They think the winners have something special. A secret formula. A better background. More support. More time. More money. But that's the myth. Here's the reality. The winners just do the boring stuff longer than everyone else. They don't look for shortcuts, they build foundations. They don't chase novelty, they refine fundamentals. They don't need to be in the mood, they build systems so strong, emotion doesn't get a vote. You think they always want to do it? They don't. But they do it anyway. Because their life isn't run by feelings. It's run by a mission. Let's talk about that word for a second, mission. You don't rise for goals. You rise for missions. A goal is something you get. A mission is something you become. And when your life is built around a mission, the repetition is no longer punishment. It becomes a sacred routine. A ceremony of progress. You start waking up with purpose. Not because every day is easy, but because every day is aligned. And alignment. That's the fuel of momentum. Now here's the thing about momentum. It only exists for those who honor repetition. Because every day you skip, you break the chain. And every time you break the chain, you shrink your belief. Not just in the task, but in yourself. Doubt doesn't show up because you're unworthy. Doubt shows up because you've been inconsistent. You don't need more confidence. You need more follow-through. You don't need more passion. You need a calendar, a commitment, and some non-negotiables. So let me ask you, what are your non-negotiables? What are the few things? The small, repeatable, daily rituals. That, if done consistently, would make the biggest difference in your life? You already know what they are. You don't need another book. You don't need another motivational video. You need repetition. You need standards. You need to stop negotiating with your future every time you feel tired today. Because the life you're after, the body, the business, the income, the impact, it's already possible. But it's not possible someday. It's possible through structure. Through today. Through effort, repeated. Let's get practical now. If you want to change your life, here's how you do it. Pick the few habits that matter most. Not 10. not 20. 3. Master the vital few, the habits that move the needle. Build them into a system. Not based on mood. Based on structure. Create a schedule. Protect the time. Remove friction. Track them. Every day. If you don't measure it, it doesn't improve. If you don't review it, you forget it. Repeat. Every day. Without excuses. That's the part people skip. That's why most never break through. They know what to do. They just don't repeat it long enough to see the reward. But if you do, if you commit to the repeat, you separate yourself from 99% of the world. Because most people are stuck in the first chapter. They're starting over. Again. And again. And again. But you're writing the second chapter. The third. The fourth. You're becoming someone different. Let me remind you. Success is not something you chase. It's something you attract. By the person you become. Through what you repeatedly do. You can't skip the reps. You can't fake the mastery. You can't cheat the process. But if you stay faithful to the small disciplines, the big life will come. In time. In silence. And then all at once. So now we arrive at the moment that matters most. Not the start. Not the idea. But this moment, right here, where decisions are made. Because all transformation begins with one quiet, courageous choice. To stop living by emotion. And start living by philosophy. To stop chasing the next thing. And start becoming the kind of person who finishes the things that matter. Every day. Repeatedly. Relentlessly. You don't need louder goals. You need deeper roots. You don't need to feel inspired. You need to feel responsible. Responsible for who you're becoming. Responsible for the standard you live by. Responsible for every minute, every action, every repetition. You're not behind. You're not too late. You're not broken. But you might be scattered. Distracted. Stuck in cycles of short bursts and long excuses. And the only way out is through the rhythm of repetition. So here's the invitation. Choose your rhythm. Not chaos. Not noise. Not endless restarts. Choose your standard. Choose your system. Choose your structure. Wake up tomorrow with intention. Not to do everything, but to do the few things that matter with excellence. Because when you start repeating excellence, it becomes your identity. And once it's your identity, you won't need motivation. You won't need permission. You won't need anyone to hold your hand. You'll be unstoppable. Not because you're better, but because you're consistent. Because you are no longer moved by moods. Because you have built a foundation under your feet that cannot be shaken by feelings or failures. This is the truth most people will never hear. The life you want is already available, but it's hiding in your habits. It's buried beneath the things you do daily. When no one is watching. When it's boring. When it's hard. When you feel like quitting. But you don't quit. You repeat. You rise. You keep your word. You carry your mission. Day after day, rep after rep, until the world has no choice but to recognize the results you've earned in silence. So the next time someone asks you, what's your secret? You won't say passion. You won't say luck. You won't say talent. You'll say something they won't understand. I repeated the right things long enough to become someone who doesn't quit. You became dangerous, disciplined, unshakable. And that made all the difference. Because it was never about passion. It was always about mastery. And mastery is built in the repetition.